Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Ukraine war, and we're going to give you an update on what's going on in the south region there. At the moment, what we're seeing is an artillery slugging match for the south, effectively. Now, key points that we're going to really be focusing on is specifically the front lines in the south region, and how little is they've both sides have progressed over the past few months, especially. We normally see in war, when we get into a situation where we're digging trenches and stuff like that, you know, things start to slow down considerably because that fight for the land, that land grab situation becomes really small, condensed. You've got almost like a microclimate of fighting in these small pocket areas, and things slow down. All right, it's just the same as what happened in World War II and World War One on the front lines, especially in the areas where they're built, where they're digging frontline trenches and stuff like that. So thanks for being here, guys. I really do appreciate it. Smash that like button if you don't mind. We're going to get into it, but before we do, I want to take a look at the Ukraine map. There's a few things I want to say on this. So if we have a look at this right now, what we can see is, again, heavily dominant southern area of Ukraine, where we've got a lot of these icons. All right, and these icons here stipulate where there's been heavy bombardment, mainly by use of artillery. Now, artillery has been, in certain situations, can be extremely effective, okay? And it's been proven to be effective in certain situations in Ukraine, for, you know, mainly for the Russians. But the Ukraine, you know, without being, how can I put it? Without being biased for Ukraine, they've got a lot of support from, you know, Western support, so to speak. Okay, Ukraine has support from the United States, America, Germany, France, you name it. They've got it. But the question that I would like to pose is, without that Western support, would this southern line where we're seeing a lot of artillery strikes, would the Ukrainians be able to defend that as effectively? My senses say no. I don't think this line would be held easy at all. Okay, if we look at the counter-offense measures that Ukraine is using at the moment, they're using a lot of support, and they're heavily dominant on that support, both economically and both with training, strategical training, munition support. You know, they're getting all of the ammunition and stuff like that from abroad. Some of the weapon systems that we've seen counteract some of the Russians have been very effective. But if we just have a look here, for instance, now, yeah, 7 hours ago, we've just seen that these Russian tanks, MLRS, and artillery shelled areas along the front lines. Russian aviation conducted airstrikes near those areas. Ukraine says its morning report. So you've got a lot of activity within these areas, but it's moving slow. It is moving slow. And it's moving slow, I think, because, well, let's face it, if you're equally matched, there's many ways to be equally matched at war. Now, Russia is the brute. Russia has the strength, the might. They normally go through situations like this and just try and steamroll ahead and use as many artillery strikes as possible to, you know, absolutely obliterate whatever's in front of them. Now, we've seen Russia has no problem with smashing the shit out of local villages where people are living who have nothing to do with the war, in an attempt to degrade the people so much to the point of where the most of the population decides to change sides momentarily just to stop the war, okay, just to stop it from happening. Just put the hands up and go, hey, you know, we don't want this to happen anymore. Can we just stop this? And it's what Russia does. But, you know, we're seeing the villages at the moment in these areas where the bombardment's been taking place. Next to no one is living there now, as you would imagine. All right, you'd imagine that no one was living there. But the people that are living there, you know, are living there fundamentally because they've had supplies stored in their homes for long periods of time, and they have the means to be able to stay there a little bit longer. God forbid I was put in that situation. If I was, I think I'd be out there first chance, all right? I don't care how many supplies I was getting. But, you know, there's been 6 months of conflict now, and things aren't really changing that much on that front line there on the southern region. The artillery strikes are increasing and increasing. I don't really see it going anywhere. The only thing I think that's going to change this, if Western support stops supporting Ukraine, mainly with munitions, ammunition, weaponry. If that stops, and the logistical support to be able to get it to the areas stop, I do think you'll see a massive takeover of this southern land, and it'll be unfortunate for Ukraine, who've been slogging their guts out for the past few months, well, 6 months really. But let's have a look at this area. This is a deployment map. All the blue, obviously you got your Ukraine, got a lot of Ukraine and mechanized, mobilized artillery. We've got infantry units. We've got support logistical contingents to the military. But if you have a look in the southern region here, that's where you can see most of the effort is being pushed, and we can see, running through this map, we've got a lot of these dark lines here signify main road systems, okay, and these main road systems are going to be integral to supplying both sides of the effort, okay. Russia are going to rely on these road systems and rail systems, those that are still existent, and so is Ukraine. All right, without them road systems, you can't supply the frontline troops effectively, leading to a point where we know wars can literally be won and lost logistically. Okay, so it doesn't matter how much how mighty you are, if you haven't got the correct logistics in place, that can be lost in pretty much quick succession. Okay, we know the failings Russia has logistically, so we're not going to get into that today. Just check the other videos out. We talk about that a lot. But I think this push for the south region is going to be integral to these routes here. All right, many of these routes rely on that south being protected. That's why I think Russia is pushing for it. All right, we've got a main place here. I don't know how to pronounce it. Dnipro. Loads of main routes going into this local area there. That's why we've got Ukraine forces around. But it's going to be a long, hard slog, this. And I think, personally, if Western support continues for Ukraine, what we're going to see is this battle for the south region. Just, the artillery strikes are going to keep on occurring. The counter-offense from Ukraine is going to keep on occurring. We're probably going to see another operational pause at some point because, these things, they're under a lot of pressure to perform, and they're trying to take this land, Russia. So it wouldn't surprise me if another month or two we'd see an operational pause so they can get their shit together. Now, this, to me, all right, is going to be won and lost on Western support. That's what I think. It's getting to that point now where I see a bit of a stalemate occurring. We've got, micro wins on the left and micro wins on the right for Russia. But all in all, I do think Western support, or the lack of Western support, is going to be the main reason why this region will fail. They might as well be fighting NATO on this front line, because effectively with the support that they're getting, that's what's occurring. So yeah, I don't know how long this is going to go on for. I don't know how long it's going to go on for until people start saying, well, we supporting Ukraine at this moment in time, rightfully so, in my opinion. But, to what prevailed? The front line hasn't changed much. More people are killed. More people are injured. More people are going to be left stranded out of their homes. Civilians aren't able to go back to their homes, back to normality, back to their jobs. And whilst all of that's happening concurrently, this front line is just going to become more ingrained in day-to-day business. It's just going to keep on happening, all right? Nothing's going to really change except for the toll of life and the stresses on life as well. So yeah, I think Western support, let's look at it the other way then. If Western support continued but upskilled what they're doing, if they supported them even further, give them even more munitions, training, and all of that good stuff, do I see Ukraine pushing Russia back? Yes, I think we need to up the artillery game. We've seen effective countermeasures put in place to counteract Russia's artillery. We've seen some of the systems being put in place that have been targeting some of the factories where munitions have been stored. Worked really, really well. Forgive me, I forget what that system's called. I think it's the MLRS. I believe more of them are actually in Ukraine operating now, so that's definitely going to help with the war effort over there. But we do need to see an increased effort, I think, from Western support to be able to, stop this stalemate and help Ukraine actually, take the offence to Russia and start pushing this front line back to where it started from, okay, and hopefully get Mariupol back as well. So that's my little update on that little bit here. There's a video, all right, and it's called Ukraine War, the Artillery Slugging Match for the South. Let's get into this and break it down a little bit further, guys.
Leading south are empty of cars. Fighting's intensifying here as Ukraine tries.
Right, I need to slow that down, 1.5 speed.
To recapture the city of Kherson. We travelled with a military escort through checkpoints, along desolate highways to reach the slowly shifting front lines.
Yeah, slowly shifting indeed. These things, it's only going to stay the same. Like I said, if the Western support continues to be the same, the war effort for Ukraine is going to stay the same. Are they going to push Russia back at this moment in time? I don't think so, unless we increase support. Is Russia going to push Ukraine back with the amount of support that Ukraine has got? I don't think so. I think it's just going to stay the same. So that's why it's slow, almost at a stalemate.
The villages have all been heavily shelled, and it is getting worse. There is now fierce fighting along the southern front. Over the last hour, we've heard the sound of incoming fire. It's been pretty constant over there. That's a Ukrainian position. You can see the smoke on the horizon just above the tree line. But the villages here are pretty much deserted. Almost everyone has left.
Right, so I've just noticed that press guy, he's got a bit of a dump bag on his press combat body armor there. And he's not going to have any magazines with him, or at least he shouldn't, so I wonder who he's been working with.
And nowhere is safe.
Стреляют, оно сейчас на море, что-то там два огня, видишь, горит что-то на море. Там...
What we're seeing is that he's a resident there. He's been through all of the artillery shelling. So it just goes to show, just because it's a front line, just because there's war happening and everything's destroyed around you, that everyone's going to leave. I can't begin to imagine what it must be like for these individuals to live there without, probably without armament either. They're probably not armed with weaponry to be able to fight off local resistance. I might be wrong there. If someone could correct me in the chat, I'd appreciate that.
Ну, стреляют сутками, все бьют, стреляют.
The attacks come night and day, and those that remain say they don't have the resources to leave.
Well, this is where you go.
Lubov shows me where she waits out the barrages of Russian artillery. It is a dark and lonely existence.
Ну я ж кажу, ми кожну ніч якось вдою і спускаємося. Аж до утра. А днем, якщо сильно бомблять, тоді ще й днем спускаємося. Ми боїмося.
Yeah, again, these people have, I commend their bravery, I respect their struggle, and this is the real cost of war. These individuals here on the front lines, just normal people trying to get by their daily business, guys, okay? We need to have these people in our thoughts at all times.
Ховаємося і боїмося. І ждемо, що скоро це все кончиться.
After 6 months of conflict, the junk of war along the southern front litters the countryside. The front lines haven't moved significantly here for months. This Russian armour was destroyed at the beginning of the invasion, along with many of Putin's soldiers.
Yeah, so again, this video is just reiterating the fact that the front lines haven't really moved anywhere for months now. Months worth of fighting, months worth of death. Tears have been shed for many months. The whole world's watching. All right, and this thing hasn't really changed too much in certain areas for a long time. So if you think about it, again, I'm just trying to think logically about it with me having a little bit of experience in the military, being a former Royal Marines commando. I like to look at things logically and think, right, front lines haven't really moved or changed much in months. Western support is great. Ukraine's fighting is fierce. However, they're both stagnant almost, so something needs to change. Either Russia's going to run out of steam. If the continued support from the West is at the same level, then technically I think Ukraine should be able to push Russia back. But at this rate, if Russia doesn't run out of steam, they've already had an operational pause, giving Ukraine an opportunity to be able to push back anywhere. But let's just say Russia doesn't run out of steam. What's going to have to happen on Ukraine's side? I personally think we're going to have to see an increased amount of support on the front lines over there. Maybe a change in tactics as well. Maybe more resources need to be put onto that flank where the front lines are in the trenches, and just have a real good old scrap. Okay, sounds horrible, but that's what I think is going to have to happen.
And Ukraine is hoping its forces will be able to roll back the Kremlin's war machine from areas further south as it launches a counter-offensive. But the units stationed here say they need more supplies from the west.
Again, we're hearing this all the time. More supplies, more supplies, more supplies. More money is effectively what that translates into. Now, it gets to a point where if this doesn't work in the coming months, then all of that money, let's be real about it, has been wasted. All of that money has been sent over there effectively for nothing. So, one, I don't want that to happen anyway. Do we increase the support with the risk of Russia still pushing Ukraine back? That's where I think the world is going to be, looking very closely at this. The powers that be, the NATO countries who are supporting this, are going to be thinking a lot through this, right? What do we do with the support? Because at the end of the day, they could be chucking money away. So I think in a last bid to push this back and to stop this war going on into one of those wars that are just long drawn out for years and years with any real success from both sides from occurring, I think we need to up the support drastically and just start trying to push these Russians back from that south border. Okay, the south front lines is the area where it's all happening here. That's where it's at a stalemate. We need someone to come out the trenches effectively and start pushing these guys back.
To win this war, we need more weapons, heavy weapons, including artillery and ammunition.
Artillery, I think, is the one for this. We've seen the counter measures for Russian artillery. But I think we need to see a lot more artillery strikes occurring on Ukraine's behalf. Okay, that's where this war is going to be won, especially if Russia hasn't got the ability to be able to counteract those strikes. I know Putin's been to the Middle East for drones and stuff like that, but drones alone aren't going to be that effective. Yes, they're going to be good for reconnaissance, eyes in the sky, that kind of thing. But the MLRS, I think it's called, is going to be something that's going to be fantastic for Ukraine. We need to see an upskill of that, more of them on the ground. If Russia got something like that on their behalf, then that changes the whole game, granted.
Along the line of contact, trenches stretch for miles.
It's quite quiet here at the moment, but at night, the shelling and the missiles start landing on this position. The Russians are just over there. We're obscured by this tree line.
There is a worry amongst the soldiers Western support may fade without steady progress. But a defeat here, they warn, will have consequences for democracies everywhere.
So we spoke about that, the fact that this is pretty much relying on Western support. Ukraine doesn't win this without Western support, in my humble opinion. That's the worrying thing for me. And they're going to get into what it's gonna, what its effects are going to be for the rest of the world, all of the democracies out there. I don't know actually what to make of this. I haven't really got an opinion. I haven't looked that far into the impact of what it's going to have for the rest of the world. So I'm going to have to take this guy's word for what he says and see if we can elaborate on it.
Якщо ми тут на нашій землі не зупинимо їх, якщо вони, не дай Бог, таке станеться, що захватять нас, уб'ють, розіб'ють всю нашу армію, вони ж підуть далі, вони на цьому не зупиняться.
The troops are 100% confident they can win, but Ukraine says there are signs Moscow is becoming more desperate. Attacks on civilian targets are increasing. In Mykolaiv, residents live under the constant threat of bombing. At this bus stop, 7 were killed by a Russian rocket. And this...
Yeah, so he didn't really get into the effects of what it could have for, Western society, democracy, and all of that. But what I can gauge from what he said is they're not going to stop here, all right? The way Russia is moving, the way they're manipulating their advance, if they do get the win, they do grab the land, they're going to continue on, all right? They're going to continue through this, and I think that's what he's fearful of. We're probably looking, if Russia's successful in Ukraine, we're probably going to have to start preempting an attack on Moldova, because if you just look at it strategically, it makes sense for Russia to take Moldova, and then we have to look geographically to Poland, Poland and all of the other countries surrounding the those areas, and it's going to be really hard for those countries to defend once they've got traction and a foothold in the likes of Ukraine and Moldova. They've got the traction, then they're rolling. Is it going to be easier for them to push on through further west into Europe? Possibly so. That's where we start getting into this whole NATO argument. Finland and Sweden joining NATO is a good thing, in my opinion. Are we going to see other countries trying to follow suit? And if they're already part of NATO, are we going to see other countries wanting to support the likes of Moldova and Poland if Russia was to be successful in Ukraine? That's the bigger question I think we need to ask.
This hotel nearby was struck by a missile.
They want Ukrainians to be frightened because they want to push us and to take our freedom.
The war here is entering a new phase, but this conflict will not be over quickly. The artillery slugging match for the south will be a slow and deadly grind.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I don't know what the answers are. I can only suggest what I think would help. So if they're saying on the news that this is going to be a long, drawn-out war, artillery is going to be the thing that slows it down. We're going to see a lot more of these artillery bombardments occurring in that south region. What is the answer? Well, support is out the window. You're going to have to act. It's not out the window. It's more support doesn't necessarily mean more traction in this case. We need to reorganize and think about new ways of counterattacking these artillery strikes. I think the MLRS system, again, forgive me if that's the wrong thing, basically can counteract the artillery strikes from Russia. We need that to, we need to upskill that straight away. We need to increase that so we can get these artillery pieces off the ground. Once we've got them off the ground, we need to be able to push through. We can't push through unless Ukraine has artillery pieces themselves that they can heavily bombard that area and potentially take out their countermeasures for it. So you can see how this is going to be a bit of a chess match just with artillery alone, okay? There's going to be a lot of moving parts just orientated around artillery specifically. So yeah, this is going to be a long drawn out war. For that reason alone, I'm not too sure what the end result will be, and I'm not too sure how Ukraine is going to win this. I'm not too sure how Russia is going to win this. They're both really competitive at this moment in time. And I don't know. It's a tough one to juggle, guys. I'll leave that one down to you in the comments. Everyone that watches the channel, thank you. Anyone that supports me, thank you. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thanks for stopping by. And if you want to like the channel, subscribe for more content, please do so. Press that join button to become a member. It's the one thing that helps me create content like this every single day. Most of these videos don't get monetized, and this is my full-time job. So if you are there supporting, I want to say a personal thank you. Guys, until the next time, thanks for watching.